So hi everyone, my name is Evgeni Aizenberg, and I'm a postdoc at AiTech, and my project is on designing for human rights in AI. As you've gathered now, I'm working together with Jeroen van Hoven on this, and also Enold. So jumping right in, as we all know, artificial intelligence is rapidly growing in use, and the promise that we often hear and that many of us have spent time working in the past and in the present on these technologies is to provide more evidence-driven decisions, provide more efficiency, have more automation to hopefully let us be more free to pursue the things that we wish to pursue as humans and be less busy with all kinds of mundane tasks. However, does AI really live up to these promises from what we see over the past decade? Well, unfortunately, we have seen over the past decade or so many examples of the opposite. This is an example that you might have heard about of the Compass algorithm used in the United States for assessment of risk that a criminal defendant commits another crime in the future. And as this ProPublica investigation has found in 2016, it was found to be twice as likely to falsely label an African-American defendant as high risk compared to a white defendant. We have seen cases where employee performance assessments performed by algorithms result in firing of talented employees, like in the case of Sarah Wysotsky, a school teacher in the US, who was highly valued by her fellow teacher colleagues and parents of the kids that she taught, but when receiving a low assessment score based on the test scores of her students from that specific year, she was fired. Of course, as Jeroen mentioned, we are all aware of the shock waves of the Cambridge Analytica scandal that has shaken the way we live our election systems in election cycles in our democratic states, right? All the disinformation that is now bombarding us on social media and the internet. And as you might have heard, and Jeroen mentioned, China is taking a very particular direction on how they want to use AI in their society, where in China right now a whole social credit score system is being implemented, where every citizen will receive a basically how good of a good citizen are you score based on all kinds of vast amounts of data, from CCTV cameras to you name it, which can affect things like your ability to purchase a train ticket or a plane ticket, or your ability to send your kids to a school of your choice, and so forth. So some of the major socio-ethical issues surrounding AI that we see are discrimination, unjustified, unexplainable decisions, privacy infringement, disinformation, job market effects of automation, the anxiety of people as to how their jobs are going to be affected with more automation taking place, and of course safety. Now, what I would like to impress upon you today with these examples is that these technologies are of major consequence to people's human rights. And when I say human rights, I mean such fundamental notions as human dignity, freedom, and equality. And in my view, this is one of the biggest challenges of our time. It is right up there second to the climate crisis, which all of us should be worried about, regardless of our occupation. But not far from the climate crisis is this, because of how disruptive this technology can be. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great things we can accomplish with AI. But if we get many things wrong about how this technology impacts, as Jeroen was saying, our freedom of choice and all of those other dimensions, it can be immensely disruptive to our societies. So, of course, this has been getting increasing attention over the past decade, both from the technological side of the spectrum, both from the social science side, the ethics of technology side. But unfortunately, a lot of the technical solutions which are developed to address these issues, such as fairness, for example, and discrimination, engineers often develop these solutions without the input of societal stakeholders. And so engineers too often focus on the machine learning model, the input data and the output data, but the larger contextual information and the interpretation of people who are affected by the technology and use the technology is often ignored. At the same time, what we see is that calls for ethical AI point out the issues, but often fail to provide answers on how do we proceed to fix that. Bridging the socio-technical divide is what my project is about. And in my project, I take a design for values approach to doing so. Because of how impactful AI is to people's human rights, what we want to do, we want to use human rights as top-level design requirements in the kind of design approach that Jeroen and Filippo talked about. These should be the values that guide the human-centered design of these systems. The other critical component of this approach is that we then work together with the stakeholders by engaging them through a range of empirical methods, from methodologies like value-sensitive design and participatory design, with a combination of qualitative research and quantitative research, which is very important. This is where the collaboration between disciplines comes, yes? This is where we need each other as engineers and social sciences to translate what do human rights and their implications mean in a specific context of use, in a specific system that you're considering, whether this is a decision support algorithm in criminal justice, whether it's an automatic driving car. What's in that specific context the interpretation of an abstract value, and then translate that into corresponding technical requirements. One comment about what we mean here by human rights. So we make an explicit choice of grounding the design roadmap in the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights. The values at the foundation of, these are the values at the foundation of EU law, and they are dignity, freedom, equality, and solidarity. Of course, this is not exclusive to EU member states. These values are shared by many cultures in the West. And at the outset, we should recognize that there will be different value choices that are likely in many other cultures and socio-political systems. So we want to make clear we're not trying to impose our view of society on other countries, but we want to show how these technologies can be designed over here to support the values that we treasure over here. Now, to just give you a glimpse of the benefits of and how was the structure of this process, imagine that we would want to design for values which are at stake in that criminal risk assessment case. Well, for the criminal defendants, an important human right which is at stake, of course, is obviously freedom. And if we look in the EU Charter, in the freedom articles, we have, of course, the right to liberty, which in the context of criminal justice, one of its main implications is that a person may not be subjected to an arbitrary arrest. If you arrest a person, that there needs to be court withstanding evidence, right? You need to be able to prove in court that there's the arrest of this person is warranted. The next question is, how do you translate that into a technical requirement? Well, in general, this is an important moment, because in situations where there is no obvious technical solution to support that norm, sometimes it will be a stimulus for innovation, because historically we know that when faced with moral dilemmas, we produce some new technologies that allow us to resolve all of the dilemmas above. But I want to make the point that there will be situations when norms cannot be fulfilled with technology. And the responsible thing to do then is to stop. It is not an obvious thing that AI should be introduced in every context. More AI is not always the right answer. And in that, I want to say that meaningful human control of AI requires, from my vision, eliciting contextual design requirements by iteratively co-designing with stakeholders, engineers, individuals affected by the AI's actions, direct users, field experts, policy experts, and so forth. Moving forward, we want to engage in case studies in which we implement this vision in specific contexts, and I'll be glad to interact with you today to also hear your ideas. Learn to communicate efficiently across diverse backgrounds, and finally transition from these studies to design protocols in specific societal domains. Just for closure, I want to say that designing for human rights should not be viewed as an obstacle. On the contrary, I believe that it is key to achieving innovative partnerships between humans and AI and understanding the roles that we can play together to help and humans benefit from more human-to-human, valuable human-to-human interaction. It is not an easy path to tread because we need to learn to communicate across all these different disciplines which we represent, but I believe it will bring long-term benefits to all stakeholders. And with that, I call you to design together for humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Evgeni.